Hey there, storytellers and story lovers. This is Harry Flicks. Prepare yourselves for today's incredible narrative. What if Harry was raised by the Flamels? Immortal Alchemist Harry. A quick reminder, your likes, comments, and subscriptions are the fuel that keeps this channel running. Thank you for being awesome. Let's begin this journey together. Chapter 1, The Alchemist's Apprentice. Harry's fingers hovered over the bubbling crucible, his green eyes reflecting the golden light pulsing from within. Sweat beaded on his forehead despite the chilly air of the underground laboratory. Focus on the transmutation, Harry. Feel the elements shifting, Nicholas Flamel said, his ancient voice steady but expectant. The tall, silver-haired man stood back, arms crossed over his midnight blue robes. I've got it, Harry muttered, more to himself than his mentor. 11 years old, and already he could sense the molecular dance happening in the mixture, copper and zinc dissolving, atoms rearranging under his will and the carefully measured ingredients. The gold light pulsed brighter. Harry closed his eyes, not needing to see anymore. He'd prepared for this, working for months. His hand moved instinctively to the silver knife on the workbench, and without looking, he made a small cut on his finger, letting exactly 3 drops fall into the crucible. Intent and sacrifice, he whispered, recalling Nicholas's first lesson from years ago. The mixture flashed blinding white. Harry stepped back as the crucible cracked, not in failure, but in transformation. As the light dimmed, a perfect crystal sphere the size of a snitch sat nestled in the remnants, glowing with an inner light that cycled through the spectrum. A perfect philosopher's seed, Perenelle Flamel gasped from the doorway where she'd been silently watching. The elegant woman, who appeared no more than 40 despite her centuries of life, rushed forward. Nicholas, he's done it. On his first solo attempt. Nicholas placed a hand on Harry's shoulder. I knew you would succeed. You've surpassed what took me decades to accomplish. Harry picked up the crystal sphere, feeling its pleasant warmth against his palm. Unlike the actual philosopher's stone, this seed couldn't transmute metals to gold or produce the elixir of life, but it was the first critical step in that journey, and no wizard under 17 had ever created one successfully. Does this mean I get to try the elixir before Hogwarts? Harry asked, a mischievous grin spreading across his face. Perenelle laughed, the sound like wind chimes in the stone laboratory. Absolutely not, young man. We've discussed this. No immortality until you're at least 30. Can't blame me for trying, Harry replied, carefully placing the crystal in a velvet-lined box. Nicholas ruffled Harry's perpetually messy black hair. Come upstairs. We have much to discuss before your Hogwarts letter arrives tomorrow. Tomorrow? Harry's head snapped up. You're sure it's coming tomorrow? How do you know? When you've been exchanging owls with Albus Dumbledore for over 6 centuries, you develop a certain understanding, Nicholas said with a wink. Now clean up your workspace like a proper alchemist. Harry moved through the familiar routine of cataloging ingredients and cleaning equipment. The Flamels' laboratory was a marvel that few wizards had ever seen, a cavernous space beneath their manor filled with apparatus both ancient and modern. Medieval alembics sat beside centrifuges, grimoires from the 15th century shared shelf space with journals of quantum physics. As Harry worked, he couldn't help wondering how different his life might have been. The Flamels had always been honest about his past, his birth parents, their murder, and how he came to live with them. He remembered nothing of that night, of course, being only 15 months old when Voldemort attacked. His earliest memories were of this place, of Perenelle teaching him to read from illuminated manuscripts, and Nicholas showing him how to identify magical plants in their greenhouse. Harry climbed the spiral stone staircase into the main house, the steps worn smooth by centuries of use. The manor sat nestled in an unplottable valley in the French Pyrenees, though the Flamels traveled frequently between their various homes. The manor itself was a blend of medieval stonework and modern comforts, with rooms that sometimes seemed to reflect whatever century the Flamels were feeling nostalgic for that day. He found the Flamels in the solar, a bright room with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the mountains. Like much of the house, it contained an eclectic mix of furnishings from across the centuries, a Louis XV writing desk, Renaissance tapestries, and surprisingly, a very modern leather couch where Nicholas now sat. "How was it, creating your first seed?" Perenelle asked, pouring tea from a silver service that Harry knew had been a gift from Catherine de' Medici. "It felt like everything connected." Harry struggled to find the words. "Like I could see all the elements talking to each other." Nicholas nodded. "That's the alchemist's sight developing. You're younger than anyone I've known to manifest it so clearly." Harry took his tea, adding a shocking amount of sugar that made Perenelle raise an eyebrow. "So, Hogwarts tomorrow? We're really doing this?" The Flamels exchanged a look Harry had come to recognize, the silent communication of a couple who had been together for over 600 years. "We believe it's for the best," Nicholas said carefully. "Your education here has been unconventional. You need to learn to interact with children your own age. And with wizards who don't know 7 languages and advanced alchemy," Perenelle added with a smile. "The wizarding world thinks of us as reclusive researchers. Few know we've raised you." Harry nodded, feeling a complicated mix of excitement and anxiety. "Will I have to pretend I don't know things? I mean, I've been doing magic for years." "Not pretend," Nicholas said thoughtfully. "But perhaps, modulate. Britain has strict laws about underage magic, but your wandless abilities and alchemical knowledge aren't things you need to hide entirely. Just be mindful. What your father means," Perenelle said, "is don't show off." Harry smiled at Perenelle calling Nicholas his father. They weren't his birth parents, but they were his parents in every way that mattered. He sometimes wondered if that confused people, having parents who looked middle-aged but were actually ancient. "I've arranged a vault transfer at Gringotts," Nicholas continued. "Your parents, James and Lily, left you quite comfortable, and I've added a stipend for school supplies." "But what about?" Harry gestured around them, at the life he'd known. "We'll write often," Perenelle promised. "And you'll be home for holidays. This isn't goodbye, Harry. It's just a new chapter." A loud crack interrupted them as a house elf appeared beside the tea service. "Masters, the evening post has arrived," said Mipsy, handing Nicholas a stack of letters. "Ah, it seems Albus is ahead of schedule," Nicholas said, extracting a parchment envelope with green ink from the pile and handing it to Harry. "Your Hogwarts letter has arrived today after all." Harry took the heavy envelope, running his fingers over the wax seal before breaking it open. He read aloud, "Dear Mr. Potter, we are pleased to inform you that you have been accepted at Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry." The next morning, Harry stood in his bedroom, surveying the contents of his trunk. Unlike most 11-year-olds heading to Hogwarts, he'd had to decide what to bring from his already substantial collection of magical items. "The moleskin pouch for essentials," he muttered, placing his philosopher's seed, a small alchemical toolkit, and a few rare ingredients inside. "Basic potion supplies, standard texts plus my notebooks." A soft knock interrupted his inventory. Nicholas entered, carrying something wrapped in silk. "A gift before your journey," he said, unfolding the fabric to reveal a wand. 12 inches, elder wood with a dual core, phoenix feather and powdered philosopher's stone. Harry's eyes widened. "You made this? For me?" "Garrick Ollivander helped with the craftsmanship," Nicholas admitted. "But yes, the core materials are from our personal stores. This wand is unique, Harry. It will connect to you differently than standard wands." Harry took it reverently. The moment his fingers closed around the smooth wood, crimson and gold sparks erupted from the tip, spiraling around him like friendly fireflies. "Perfect resonance," Nicholas said, sounding pleased. "Now, about Britain's trace for underage magic, this wand will register with the Ministry, but its unique properties should make it selective about what magic it reports." "Nicholas!" Perenelle called from downstairs. "Are you teaching our son to circumvent magical law?" "Merely explaining a technical peculiarity, my dear." Nicholas called back, winking at Harry. Harry laughed, tucking the wand carefully into his sleeve. So, Diagon Alley today. Indeed. We'll flow directly to the Leaky Cauldron. I believe a trip to Gringotts is in order first, then your school supplies. Harry closed his trunk with a snap. Do you think people will recognize me? You know, because of the... He traced the lightning-shaped scar on his forehead. Nicholas's face grew serious. Yes, I expect so. The wizarding world has built many legends around the boy who lived these past 10 years. You must be prepared for attention. Great, Harry sighed. Just what I need. The Leaky Cauldron was exactly as Perenelle had described it, dark, somewhat shabby, but buzzing with magical energy that Harry could feel the moment they stepped out of the fireplace. Nicholas had decided to glamour his appearance slightly, still silver-haired but looking more like a conventional grandfather than the world's most famous alchemist. The pub fell silent as they entered, eyes darting first to Nicholas and Perenelle, then locking onto Harry, specifically, his forehead where his scar was visible beneath his messy hair. Bless my soul, whispered the bartender. Harry Potter. Harry straightened his shoulders, the way Perenelle had taught him when meeting important visitors. Good morning, he said politely. That broke the dam. Suddenly he was surrounded by witches and wizards eager to shake his hand, introduce themselves, thank him. Harry handled it with practiced grace, though inside he felt a twist of discomfort at being celebrated for something he couldn't even remember. Nicholas eventually extracted them, guiding Harry through to the brick wall that concealed Diagon Alley. That wasn't so bad, Harry said as they waited for the wall to rearrange itself. Perenelle squeezed his shoulder. You handled it beautifully. The wall opened to reveal the twisting, cobblestone street lined with magical shops. Despite all his travels with the Flamels, magical communities in Paris, Alexandria, Kyoto, Harry couldn't help but feel a thrill at seeing Britain's most famous wizarding street. Gringotts first, Nicholas reminded them, steering them toward the imposing white building. Inside the bank, they approached a free goblin teller. Nicholas presented an ancient-looking golden key. Vault access for Harry Potter, and a meeting with account manager Gornick regarding the transfer we discussed by Owl. The goblin examined the key carefully before looking up at Harry with shrewd eyes. Mr. Potter. We've been expecting you. His gaze shifted to Nicholas. And Mr. Flamel. It's been 17 years since you visited in person. Has it been that long? Time flies when you're immortal, Nicholas replied with a straight face. The goblin's mouth twitched in what might have been amusement. Indeed. Follow me, please. After a wild cart ride that Harry thoroughly enjoyed, they arrived at his vault. The goblin opened it to reveal piles of gold, silver, and bronze coins. Your parents' legacy, Perenelle said softly. James and Lily wanted to ensure you'd never want for anything. Harry nodded, feeling a connection to his birth parents through this inheritance. He filled a pouch with galleons, sickles, and nuts, trying not to look too impressed by the wealth. After another meeting with Gornick to handle the financial arrangements Nicholas had made, they returned to the alley. Where first? Perenelle asked. Robes, Harry decided. Might as well get the boring stuff done first. Madame Malkin's shop was busy with other Hogwarts students. Harry was directed to stand on a footstool next to a pale, blonde boy who was also being fitted. Hogwarts too? The boy asked, looking Harry over with mild interest. Yes, Harry replied, allowing Madame Malkin to drape black fabric over him. My father's next door buying books and mother's up the street looking at wands, the boy drawled. Then I'm going to drag them off to look at racing brooms. Don't see why first years can't have their own. I think I'll bully father into getting me one and I'll smuggle it in somehow. Harry raised an eyebrow, thinking of the custom broom Nicholas had commissioned for his 10th birthday. You fly much? He asked. Of course. Father says it's a crime if I'm not picked to play for my house. Know what house you'll be in yet? Harry shrugged. Not really. They all have their merits. The boy looked scandalized. Well, no one really knows until they get there, do they? But I know I'll be in Slytherin, all our family have been. Imagine being in Hufflepuff, I think I'd leave, wouldn't you? My mother always said Hufflepuffs make the best friends and the worst enemies, Harry replied, thinking of Perenelle's stories about Helga Hufflepuff, whom she'd apparently met. Before the boy could respond, Madame Malkin said, "That's you done, my dear," and Harry hopped down from the stool. "See you at Hogwarts, I suppose," said the drawling boy. Outside, Harry rejoined the Flamels. "Made a friend?" Perenelle asked. "Not exactly," Harry replied. "But it was informative." They continued shopping, gathering cauldrons, scales, and telescopes. At Flourish and Blotts, Harry convinced Nicholas to let him buy several advanced texts beyond his school requirements. "You already have most of these in my library," Nicholas pointed out. "Yes, but these are new editions," Harry countered. "And I can't exactly bring your first edition signed copy of Advanced Potion Making to school, can I?" Nicholas conceded with a smile. "Just remember to read what the professors assign as well." Their last stop was Elop's Owl Emporium, where Harry immediately connected with a beautiful snowy owl. "She's perfect," he said as the owl nipped his finger affectionately. "An excellent familiar," Perenelle agreed. "What will you name her?" Harry thought for a moment. "Hedwig. From History of Magic." As they made their way back toward the leaky cauldron, a booming voice called out, "Nicholas. Nicholas Flamel, is that you?" They turned to see an enormous man with wild hair and beard pushing through the crowd toward them. Hagrid, Harry recognized from Nicholas's descriptions. "Rubius," Nicholas said warmly, dropping his glamour as they shook hands. "Wonderful to see you." "And this must be young Harry," Hagrid said, beaming down at him. "Last time I saw you, you was just a tiny baby." "Brought ye to the Flamels myself, on Dumbledore's orders." Harry smiled genuinely. "Thank you for that. I've had a good life with them." Hagrid wiped a tear from his eye. "Your parents would be proud, Harry. Lily and James, they were the best of people." "Would you join us for lunch, Hagrid?" Perenelle offered. "We'd love to catch up." "Wish I could, but I'm here on Hogwarts business." "Very secret," Hagrid said importantly, patting his pocket. "Perhaps another time before term starts." They agreed, and after Hagrid lumbered off, Harry turned to Nicholas. "Was that the Hogwarts gamekeeper you've told me about?" "Indeed. A good man with a big heart. He was instrumental in bringing you to us that night." They found a quiet corner in the leaky cauldron for lunch, where Nicholas cast subtle privacy charms around their table. "I think it's time we told you more about that night, Harry," Nicholas said, his voice serious. "About Voldemort and why he came after your parents." Harry leaned forward. Though the Flamels had never hidden his past, there were some details they'd said would wait until he was older. "There was a prophecy," Perenelle began softly. "About a child born as the 7th month dies who would have the power to vanquish the Dark Lord." "Me," Harry whispered. "You or one other boy," Nicholas clarified. "Voldemort chose to target you first. Your parents went into hiding, but they were betrayed by someone they trusted. When Voldemort couldn't kill you, when his curse rebounded, he didn't truly die," Perenelle continued. "That's why Albus brought you to us rather than leaving you with your mother's sister as was originally planned. He believed you needed protection beyond what blood wards could provide," Nicholas added. "And, special training." Harry absorbed this. "You think he'll come back? Voldemort?" The Flamels exchanged another of their silent looks. "We believe it's possible," Nicholas admitted. "Dark wizards who dabble in certain magics often find ways to anchor themselves to this world. That's why we've taught you what we have, not just alchemy, but how to protect yourself." "At Hogwarts, you must be vigilant," Perenelle said. "Albus will watch over you, of course, but trust your instincts, Harry. They've been honed by magic far older than Hogwarts itself. Harry nodded solemnly, then a thought struck him. Is that why you're letting me take the philosopher's seat to school? As protection? Nicholas smiled slightly. Partially. It's also a test of responsibility. And perhaps, a precaution. A precaution against what? That, said Nicholas, is something we'll discuss during Christmas holidays. For now, focus on your studies and making friends your own age. Harry knew that tone, it meant the conversation was over for now. He respected the Flamels enough not to push, though curiosity burned within him. Platform 9 3/4 bustled with activity as Harry pushed his trolley through the barrier, the Flamels following behind him. Steam billowed from the Scarlet Hogwarts Express as families bid farewell to students. Remember what we discussed about your abilities, Nicholas said quietly. Moderation is key. And write to us tonight after the sorting, Perenelle added, straightening his already straight collar. We want to hear everything. Harry hugged them both tightly. I'll miss you. 10 months will pass in a blink for us, Nicholas joked, though his eyes were suspiciously bright. But we'll miss you every day. As Harry moved to board the train, he noticed a family of redheads nearby, a harried-looking mother with 4 boys and a young girl. Packed with muggles, of course, the woman was saying loudly. One of the boys, who looked about Harry's age, was struggling with his trunk. Harry hesitated, then approached. Need a hand with that? He offered. The boy looked up with a relieved smile. Yeah, thanks. I'm Ron, by the way. Ron Weasley. Harry Potter, he replied, helping Ron lift the trunk onto the train. Ron's eyes widened. Are you really? Do you have the, you know? He gestured to his forehead. Harry pushed back his hair to reveal the lightning scar. Yeah, but it's just a scar. Wicked, Ron breathed. And is it true? You've been living with Nicholas Flamel? Harry glanced back at the Flamels, who were watching with matching smiles. Yeah, that's them over there. They're my guardians. Ron looked over at the distinguished couple and waved awkwardly. The Flamels waved back. That's mental, Ron said. My brother Charlie did a project on Flamel in his 6th year. Said he's the only known maker of the Philosopher's Stone. What's he like? Can he really turn metal into gold? Harry laughed. He's just Nicholas. And yeah, he can, but he says it's bad for the economy to do it too often. Want to find a compartment together? They found an empty compartment near the end of the train. After stowing their trunks, Harry leaned out the window to say a final goodbye to the Flamels. As the train began to move, he felt a curious mixture of excitement and apprehension. So, Ron began once they were underway, is it true you can already do magic? Living with the Flamels and all? Harry considered his answer carefully. Some, he admitted. Mostly potions and alchemy stuff. Nicholas believes in learning by doing. Lucky, Ron sighed. Mum barely lets us touch our wands before school. Got 5 older brothers, see. Bill and Charlie already finished, Charlie was Quidditch captain and Bill was head boy. Now Percy's a prefect. Fred and George mess around a lot, but they still get good marks. Everyone expects me to do as well, but if I do, it's no big deal because they did it first. Harry nodded sympathetically. That sounds tough. But hey, at least you've got brothers. I'd have liked that. Better than having 600-year-old guardians. Ron asked, looking skeptical. Harry laughed. They're not that old. Well, okay, they are, but they don't act it. Perenelle, that's Mrs. Flamel, she's brilliant at Quidditch. Taught me to play when I was 6. You play Quidditch? Ron perked up. What position? Seeker, mostly. You? Keeper, but I'm not very good yet. What team do you support? The conversation flowed easily after that, with Ron explaining the finer points of the Chudley Cannon's perpetual bad luck and Harry sharing stories about attending matches in France and Spain with the Flamels. Their compartment door slid open, and a round-faced boy peered in tearfully. "Sorry, have you seen a toad? I've lost him." "No, sorry," Ron replied. "He'll turn up." "I can help you look," Harry offered, standing up. "I know a minor finding charm that might work." The boy looked hopeful. "Really? I'm Neville, by the way. Neville Longbottom." Harry froze momentarily, recognizing the name from his conversations with the Flamels, the other boy the prophecy could have referred to. "Harry Potter. Nice to meet you." Neville's eyes widened, but before he could respond, a bushy-haired girl appeared behind him. "Has anyone seen a toad? Neville's lost one." She had a bossy sort of voice and already wore her Hogwarts robes. "I was just going to help him look," Harry said. "Oh, are you doing magic? Let's see then." The girl sat down next to Ron, who looked taken aback. Harry pulled out his wand, feeling its warm connection. "It's a simple finding charm." "What's your toad's name, Neville?" "Trevor." Harry closed his eyes briefly, focusing, then made a gentle swirling motion with his wand. "Reperio Trevor," he said clearly. His wand pulled slightly in his hand, pointing toward the corridor. "He's that way. Probably not far." The bushy-haired girl looked impressed. "That's not in our first-year books. I've tried a few simple spells myself, but nothing like that. I'm Hermione Granger, by the way." "Harry Potter." Hermione's eyes lit up. "Are you really? I know all about you, of course. I bought a few extra books for background reading, and you're in Modern Magical History and The Rise and Fall of the Dark Arts." "Most of what's in those books is guesswork," Harry said with a shrug. "No one really knows what happened that night except Voldemort, and he's not exactly giving interviews." Hermione and Neville gasped at the name, while Ron looked shocked. "You said you know whose name?" "Nicholas and Perenelle always use his name. They say fear of a name increases fear of the thing itself." "Nicholas and Perenelle?" Hermione questioned. "You don't mean Nicholas and Perenelle Flamel? The alchemist and his wife? The creators of the Philosopher's Stone?" Harry nodded. "They're my guardians." Hermione's jaw dropped. "But they must be over 600 years old. And they raised you? That's absolutely fascinating. Did they teach you alchemy? Is that how you knew that finding charm? Can you really turn metal into gold?" Harry laughed, holding up his hands. "Whoa, one question at a time. Let's find Neville's toad first, okay?" They followed Harry's wand through several train cars until they found Trevor in a luggage rack. Neville was overjoyed, thanking Harry profusely. "That was brilliant," Hermione said as they walked back. "Is that the kind of thing you learn from the Flamels?" "Some of it," Harry admitted. "They believe in practical magic, understanding why spells work, not just how to perform them." When they returned to the compartment, Hermione stayed, peppering Harry with questions about life with the Flamels and what he'd already learned. Ron, surprisingly, didn't seem jealous but genuinely interested in Harry's unconventional upbringing. "Do you think you'll be in Ravenclaw, then?" Hermione asked eventually. "Being raised by such scholarly people." Harry considered this. "I don't know. Nicholas was actually in Slytherin when he attended Hogwarts, though that was about 500 years ago. Perenelle never went to Hogwarts, she studied at Beauxbatons. My whole family's been in Gryffindor," Ron said. "I don't suppose Ravenclaw would be too bad, but imagine if they put me in Slytherin." "That's the house Voldemort was in, wasn't it?" Hermione asked. Harry nodded. "But it's also the house of Merlin, Paracelsus, and dozens of other great wizards. Nicholas says judging someone by their house is like judging a book by its binding." Their conversation was interrupted when the compartment door slid open again. 3 boys entered, and Harry recognized the middle one as the pale boy from Madame Malkin's. "Is it true?" the boy asked. "They're saying all down the train that Harry Potter's in this compartment." "So it's you, is it?" "Yes," Harry said, studying the other 2 boys, both thickset and looking like bodyguards. "This is Crabbe and Goyle," the pale boy said carelessly. "And my name's Malfoy, Draco Malfoy." Ron gave a slight cough, which might have been hiding a snigger. Draco looked at him sharply. "Think my name's funny, do you? No need to ask who you are. My father told me all the Weasleys have red hair, freckles, and more children than they can afford." He turned back to Harry. "You'll soon find out some wizarding families are much better than others, Potter. You don't want to go making friends with the wrong sort. I can help you there." He held out his hand to shake Harry's, but Harry didn't take it. "I think I can tell the wrong sort for myself, thanks," he said coolly, drawing on the diplomatic training Perenelle had given him. "And in my experience, judging someone by their family name or wealth rarely leads to accurate assessments." Draco Malfoy didn't go red, but a pink tinge appeared in his pale cheeks. "I'd be careful if I were you, Potter," he said slowly. "Unless you're a bit politer you'll go the same way as your parents. They didn't know what was good for them, either." Harry stood up, looking Malfoy directly in the eyes. "That sounds remarkably like a threat, Herr Malfoy. Is that your intention?" Something in Harry's demeanor, perhaps the formal address, perhaps the unwavering gaze, made Malfoy take half a step back. "Come on," he muttered to Crabbe and Goyle, and they disappeared. "That was brilliant, mate," Ron exclaimed as Harry sat back down. "Where did you learn to handle someone like that?" Hermione asked, looking impressed. Harry shrugged. "The Flamels entertain diplomats and dignitaries from all over the world. I've seen Perenelle reduce grown wizards to stammering with just her tone. She calls it verbal alchemy, transmuting confrontation into advantage." "Well, it worked," Ron said. "Did you see his face?" The rest of the journey passed pleasantly. They bought snacks from the trolley lady, shared stories, and speculated about Hogwarts. As darkness fell outside, they changed into their school robes, and soon the train was slowing down. When they stepped onto the platform at Hogsmeade Station, Harry heard a familiar booming voice, "Fur's years. Fur's years over here." Hagrid's big hairy face beamed at them over the sea of heads. "All right there, Harry." Harry waved, then followed Hagrid with the other first years down a steep, narrow path. They rounded a bend, and there was a collective boo-hoo. Hogwarts Castle stood on a high mountain across a black lake, its windows sparkling against the starry sky. "No more N4 to a boat," Hagrid called, pointing to a fleet of little boats sitting by the shore. Harry, Ron, Hermione, and Neville climbed into one together. As they glided across the lake, Harry gazed up at the castle. Despite all his travels with the Flamels, despite the wonders he'd seen, Hogwarts took his breath away. There was something ancient and powerful about it that resonated with the magic he'd been taught. The boats carried them through a curtain of ivy into an underground harbor. They clambered out onto rocks and pebbles, then followed Hagrid up a passageway to a huge oak front door. Hagrid raised a gigantic fist and knocked 3 times. The door swung open at once. A tall, black-haired witch in emerald green robes stood there with a very stern face. "The Fur's years, Professor McGonagall," said Hagrid. "Thank you, Hagrid. I will take them from here." She led them across the flagged stone floor into a small, empty chamber off the hall. "Welcome to Hogwarts," said Professor McGonagall. "The start-of-term banquet will begin shortly, but before you take your seats in the Great Hall, you will be sorted into your houses." She explained about the 4 houses, house points, and the house cup, then left them to wait. "How exactly do they sort us into houses?" Harry heard someone ask. "Some sort of test, I think. Fred said it hurts a lot, but I think he was joking," Ron replied nervously. Harry smiled. "It's just a hat." A hat, several voices echoed. An enchanted hat that looks into your mind and determines where you belong, Harry explained. Nicholas told me about it. This seemed to calm some nerves, though not all. Soon, Professor McGonagall returned and led them into the great hall. Harry had heard about the ceiling from both Nicholas and books, but seeing the velvety black ceiling dotted with stars still amazed him. Thousands of candles floated above 4 long tables where the rest of the students sat. At the top of the hall was the high table where the teachers sat. Professor McGonagall placed a 4-legged stool in front of the first years. On top of the stool she put a pointed wizard's hat, extremely old and patched. For a few seconds, there was complete silence. Then the hat twitched and a rip near the brim opened wide like a mouth as the hat began to sing about the 4 houses and their qualities. When it finished, the whole hall burst into applause. Professor McGonagall stepped forward with a long roll of parchment. "When I call your name, you will put on the hat and sit on the stool to be sorted," she said. "Abbott, Hannah." The sorting began. Harry watched as his new acquaintances were sorted, Hermione to Gryffindor, which surprised him slightly, Neville also to Gryffindor, and Malfoy to Slytherin. Finally, Potter, Harry. Whispers broke out across the hall as Harry stepped forward. "Potter, did she say? The Harry Potter?" Harry sat on the stool and the hat dropped over his eyes. Said a small voice in his ear. "Difficult. Very difficult. Plenty of courage, I see. Not a bad mind either. There's talent, oh my goodness, yes, and knowledge far beyond your years, thanks to the Flamels, I see. And a nice thirst to prove yourself. So where shall I put you?" Harry gripped the edges of the stool, thinking, "Wherever I can grow the most." "Wherever you can grow the most, said the small voice. "That's unusual, most ask for where they'll be happiest or most successful. But growth, that's interesting. You have the mind for Ravenclaw, certainly. Slytherin could help you on the way to greatness, no doubt about that. Hufflepuff would nurture your loyal heart. But I think, for true growth, for becoming who you're meant to be, better be Gryffindor." Harry heard the hat shout the last word to the whole hall. He took off the hat and walked, slightly dazed, toward the Gryffindor table, where he was greeted with the loudest cheer yet. Percy the prefect got up and shook his hand vigorously, while the Weasley twins yelled, "We got Potter! We got Potter!" Harry sat down opposite a ghost who smiled and patted his arm, giving Harry the sudden, horrible feeling he'd just plunged it into a bucket of ice water. The sorting continued until Ron was finally called and also placed in Gryffindor. He collapsed into the chair next to Harry, grinning with relief. Albus Dumbledore had gotten to his feet, beaming at the students, his arms opened wide. "Welcome," he said. "Welcome to a new year at Hogwarts. Before we begin our banquet, I would like to say a few words. And here they are, Nitwit. Blubber. Oddment. Tweak. Thank you." He sat back down and everybody clapped and cheered. Harry laughed, knowing from Nicholas that Dumbledore's eccentric persona concealed one of the sharpest minds in the wizarding world. The dishes in front of him were now piled with food. Harry, who had developed a sophisticated palate living with the Flamels, found himself craving the simple pleasures of Hogwarts cooking: roast beef, roast chicken, pork chops, lamb chops, sausages, bacon, steak, boiled potatoes, roast potatoes, fries, Yorkshire pudding, peas, carrots, gravy, ketchup, and, for some strange reason, peppermint humbugs. "That does look good," said the ghost wistfully, watching Harry cut into his steak. "Can't you?" Harry began. "I haven't eaten for nearly 500 years, said the ghost. "I don't need to, of course, but one does miss it. I don't think I've introduced myself. Sir Nicholas de Mimsy Porpington at your service. Resident ghost of Gryffindor Tower." "I know who you are," said Ron suddenly. "My brothers told me about you, you're nearly headless Nick." "I would prefer you to call me Sir Nicholas de, nearly headless." "How can you be nearly headless?" asked a sandy-haired boy named Seamus Finnegan. Sir Nicholas looked extremely miffed. Like this, he said irritably. He seized his left ear and pulled. His whole head swung off his neck and fell onto his shoulder as if it was on a hinge. Fascinating, Harry said, genuinely interested. Nicholas, my guardian, mentioned you. He said you were executed in 1492. Is that right? Nearly headless Nick looked pleased as he swung his head back onto his neck. Indeed, young Potter. Few first-years know their ghostly history. He also said you had a collection of poems published in the 1470s that were quite good, Harry added, remembering one of Nicholas's many historical anecdotes. Nick looked positively delighted. He remembers that. How very kind. Yes, Sonnets of a Sorrowful Soul, not my finest work, but well received at the time. The conversation turned to their families. Seamus described how his father, a Muggle, had gotten a real shock when he discovered his wife was a witch. Neville explained how his grandmother had raised him and how his family thought he might be a squib until his great-uncle Algy accidentally dropped him out of a window and he bounced. What about you, Harry? Asked Dean Thomas. What was it like growing up with the Flamels? All nearby conversations stopped as students leaned in to hear. Harry considered how to answer. Different, I guess. We live in a manor in France most of the time, though we travel a lot. Nicholas and Perenelle taught me at home, not just magic but history, languages, science. Can you really do advanced magic already? Someone asked. Some, Harry admitted. Mostly alchemy and potions. I've been helping in the laboratory since I was little. Have you met famous people? Asked Lavender Brown. Harry smiled. When you're over 600 years old like the Flamels, you know pretty much everyone. Last Christmas, we had dinner with the French Minister for Magic. And Perenelle regularly corresponds with a Swedish potioneer who's developing a cure for lycanthropy. The conversation continued through dessert, with Harry fielding questions about life with the Flamels while trying not to sound boastful. He was relieved when Dumbledore finally stood again to give start-of-term notices. First years should note that the forest on the grounds is forbidden to all pupils. And a few of our older students would do well to remember that as well. Dumbledore's twinkling eyes flashed in the direction of the Weasley twins. I have also been asked by Mr. Filch, the caretaker, to remind you all that no magic should be used between classes in the corridors. Quidditch trials will be held in the second week of the term. Anyone interested in playing for their house teams should contact Madam Hooch. And finally, I must tell you that this year, the third-floor corridor on the right-hand side is out of bounds to everyone who does not wish to die a very painful death. Harry's eyebrows shot up at this. That seemed an odd announcement for a school. He made a mental note to write to the Flamels about it. And now, before we go to bed, let us sing the school song, cried Dumbledore. The school bellowed the song, everyone finishing at different times. The Weasley twins were last, singing a very slow funeral march while Dumbledore conducted their last few lines with his wand. As Percy led the Gryffindor first years through the castle to their dormitory, Harry took in everything, the moving portraits, the shifting staircases, the hidden doors. Despite his extensive education with the Flamels, despite having visited numerous magical institutions around the world, Hogwarts felt special. Different. Like coming home. In the dormitory, Harry found his trunk at the foot of a four-poster bed. Too tired to talk much, the boys pulled on their pajamas and fell into bed. Great food, isn't it? Ron muttered sleepily through the hangings. Get the hat say anything interesting to you? It considered all four houses actually, Harry replied. Said I could do well in any of them. Really? Mine just shouted Gryffindor straight away. Harry smiled in the darkness. I'm glad we're in the same house. Me too, Ron yawned. Night, Harry. Night, Ron. As his dormmate's breathing deepened into sleep, Harry sat up and pulled a small journal and quill from his trunk. By wand light, he wrote a letter to the Flamels, describing the journey, his new friends, and his sorting into Gryffindor. He mentioned Dumbledore's strange warning about the third-floor corridor, wondering if they knew anything about it. After sealing the letter, Harry went to the window where Hedwig waited expectantly. "Take this to Nicholas and Perenelle," he whispered, stroking her feathers. "And be careful, it's a long flight to France." Hedwig nipped his finger affectionately before taking flight into the night sky. Harry watched her disappear, then returned to his bed. Tomorrow would begin his official magical education, so different from the personalized instruction he'd received from the Flamels. He was both nervous and excited. As he drifted off to sleep, Harry's last thought was that, despite missing his guardians, he'd made the right choice in coming to Hogwarts. Here, he could be both Harry Potter, the boy who lived, and Harry, the Flamels' apprentice, finding his own path between the two legacies. Chapter 2, Secrets in Plain Sight. Harry woke before dawn, the unfamiliar bed and the excitement of his first day making sleep impossible. He slipped quietly from the dormitory, Philosopher's Seed tucked in his pocket, and made his way to the Gryffindor common room. The fire had burned down to embers, casting the room in a soft orange glow. Finding a comfortable armchair by the window, Harry pulled out the seed, letting it rest in his palm. The crystal sphere pulsed with gentle light, cycling through colors in response to his touch. Harry closed his eyes, using the meditation technique Nicholas had taught him, visualizing his magic as currents flowing through his body, connecting with the seed's energy. "What are you doing?" Harry startled, nearly dropping the crystal. Hermione Granger stood at the base of the girls' staircase, already dressed in her school robes, watching him curiously. "Morning meditation," Harry said, quickly pocketing the seed. "Helps focus magic. Nicholas says it's like tuning an instrument before playing." "Is that what that crystal thing was? Some kind of focusing tool?" Hermione asked, coming closer. "Something like that," Harry hedged. "It's called a Philosopher's Seed. I made it this summer." Hermione's eyes widened. "You made it? Is it related to the Philosopher's Stone?" Distantly. "It's a junior version, alchemy training wheels," Harry explained, deciding honesty was better than secrecy with someone as perceptive as Hermione. "It can't make gold or elixir of life, but it helps with alchemical workings and sensing magical energies." Hermione looked fascinated. "Could you show me how it works sometime?" Harry smiled. "Sure. But maybe not at 5:30 in the morning." She blushed. "I was too excited to sleep. Our first day of magical education." "Same. Want to explore the castle before breakfast?" "Nicholas mapped some of the secret passages for me, but I bet things have changed in 600 years. Hermione's face lit up. "That would be brilliant." By the time the rest of Gryffindor Tower began stirring, Harry and Hermione had discovered 3 hidden shortcuts, met the castle poltergeist Peeves, who showed surprising deference to Harry after he mentioned the Flamels, and charmed the grumpy caretaker Filch by asking about the castle's history. "How did you do that?" Hermione asked as they left Filch happily reminiscing about medieval punishment devices. "Everyone says he hates students. Nicholas says people who feel unappreciated just need someone to show interest," Harry replied. "Plus, I genuinely wanted to know about those chains in his office. They're goblin forged, did you notice the runes?" At breakfast in the Great Hall, Ron joined them, bleary-eyed and yawning. "Been up for hours, haven't you?" he grumbled good-naturedly, piling his plate with sausages. "Exploring," Harry confirmed, passing Ron the ketchup before he asked for it. "We found a passage behind the tapestry of dancing trolls that leads straight to the Transfiguration corridor." Professor McGonagall moved along the table distributing course schedules. "Double potions with the Slytherins first," Ron groaned. "Snape's head of Slytherin House. They say he always favors them." "Snape?" Harry perked up. "Severus Snape. You know him?" Hermione asked. "Only by reputation," Harry said carefully. "He's published some brilliant articles in Potions Quarterly. Nicholas speaks highly of his innovations. As they entered the dungeons for potions, Harry felt a strange anticipation. The classroom reminded him of the Flamels laboratory, the familiar sense of herbs and preservatives, bubbling cauldrons, jars of fascinating specimens. Professor Snape started class with roll call, pausing at Harry's name. "Ah, yes," he said softly, "Harry Potter. Our new celebrity." Draco Malfoy and his friends sniggered behind their hands. Snape finished calling names and looked up at the class. "You are here to learn the subtle science and exact art of potion making," he began, speaking barely above a whisper. The class hung on his every word. "As there is little foolish wand-waving here, many of you will hardly believe this is magic. I don't expect you will really understand the beauty of the softly simmering cauldron with its shimmering fumes, the delicate power of liquids that creep through human veins, bewitching the mind, and snaring the senses." Harry was impressed despite himself. Snape spoke about potions with genuine passion, reminding him of Nicholas during a particularly exciting experiment. "Potter," Snape said suddenly. "What would I get if I added powdered root of asphodel to an infusion of wormwood?" "Draught of living death, sir," Harry answered promptly. "A sleeping potion so powerful it simulates death." Snape's lips tightened. "Where would you look if I told you to find me a bezoar?" "In the stomach of a goat, sir. It's a stone that can counteract most poisons." "What is the difference between monkshood and wolfsbane?" "They're the same plant, sir, also called aconite. Though the strain that grows in the northern Alps has slightly different properties than the common variety, more effective in potions requiring lunar attunement." Snape's eyes narrowed at this advanced addition to the answer. "And who taught you this, Potter?" "Nicholas Flamel, sir. And your article in the April issue of Potions Quarterly on Alpine aconite variants was very illuminating." A flicker of surprise crossed Snape's face before his expression hardened again. "Correct," he said curtly. "Well? Why aren't you all copying that down?" There was a sudden rummaging for quills and parchment. As the class settled into copying instructions for a simple boil-curing potion, Snape moved closer to Harry's workstation. "The Flamels taught you potions?" he asked in a low voice. "Yes, sir. Since I was 7, Harry replied, carefully measuring dried nettles. Snape watched Harry work for a moment. "We shall see if you inherited your mother's talent or merely memorized facts." Harry looked up, surprised. "You knew my mother?" But Snape had already moved away to criticize the way Neville was crushing snake fangs. As Harry brewed, he felt completely in his element. The familiar routine of preparation, timing, and careful observation was second nature after years in the Flamels lab. When Neville's cauldron began to melt 2 tables away, Harry quickly flicked his wand under the table, whispering a freezing charm that stopped the potion from spreading beyond the immediate area. Snape vanished the ruined potion with a wave of his wand, berating Neville for adding porcupine quills before taking the cauldron off the fire. As the class returned to work, Snape swept by Harry's cauldron, examining his nearly finished potion. "The color should be lighter," he said critically, though without the venom he directed at others. Harry nodded. "I was just about to add 3 clockwise stirs to clarify it, sir." Snape's eyebrow raised a fraction. "Proceed." By the end of class, Harry's potion was perfect, the exact shade of blue described in the textbook, with the correct consistency and faint silver vapor. Snape examined it with a neutral expression. "Adequate," he pronounced, which Harry suspected was high praise from the potion's master. "It seems you've inherited something of your mother's intuition after all." As they left the dungeon, Ron shook his head in amazement. "That was brilliant, Harry. No one ever gets praise from Snape." "What did he mean about your mum?" "I don't know," Harry admitted. "I never knew she was good at potions." "You never asked the Flamels about your parents?" Hermione asked, surprised. "Of course I did," Harry replied. "They told me loads about Dad being a prankster and Mom being brilliant at charms, but they didn't know them that well." Seems like Snape did, though. Their next class was Transfiguration with Professor McGonagall, who began by transforming her desk into a pig and back again. Harry was delighted by the demonstration, though having seen Nicholas perform far more complex transfigurations, he wasn't as awed as his classmates. After taking complicated notes, they were each given a match to turn into a needle. Harry found himself in a dilemma. He could easily transfigure the match. Nicholas had taught him the principles of object transmutation years ago, but should he succeed immediately and draw attention, or struggle like his classmates? He decided on a middle path, making deliberate mistakes while slowly improving his needle. By the end of class, only he and Hermione had made any difference to their matches. Hermione's had gone silver and pointy, while Harry's was a perfect needle, though he'd only achieved this in the final minutes. "Excellent work, both of you," Professor McGonagall said, showing the class their needles. 5 points each to Gryffindor. Hermione beamed at him as they left class. "How did you do that?" "I tried everything in the book. It's about visualizing the transformation," Harry explained. "Not just the shape, but the essential nature of the object changing. The metal's crystalline structure replacing the wood's cellular structure." "That's not in our textbook," Hermione frowned. "No, it's more alchemical theory," Harry admitted. "I can show you some of Nicholas's notes on matter transmutation if you'd like." Hermione's eyes lit up like it was Christmas morning. "Would you really?" "Sure. But don't tell everyone I've got them, I'm trying not to stand out too much." "Too late for that," Ron said, catching up with them. "Everyone's talking about how you showed up Snape in potions. Even the Slytherins are impressed." The rest of the week passed in similar fashion, Harry restraining his abilities in most classes while forming stronger bonds with Ron and Hermione. Defense against the dark arts, which many students had been looking forward to, proved disappointing. Professor Quirrell's classroom smelled strongly of garlic, which was rumored to ward off a vampire he'd encountered in Romania. More concerning to Harry was the strange sensation he felt whenever Quirrell turned his back. A faint magical resonance that made the philosopher's seed in his pocket grow warm. During their third defense lesson, Harry discreetly placed the seed on his desk, watching as it pulsed an ominous dark purple whenever Quirrell paced near him. After class, Harry lingered, pretending to pack his bag slowly until the room emptied. "P.P. Potter," Quirrell stammered, "is there something you need?" "Just a question about the reading, Professor," Harry said, approaching the desk while keeping the seed concealed in his palm. As he got closer, the crystal grew almost hot, its color deepening to near black. "The text mentions shields against minor hexes, but I was wondering about more advanced protective measures," Harry continued, studying Quirrell closely. "And most advanced P protection is beyond F first-year curriculum," Quirrell replied, his stutter seeming to worsen. "P perhaps in a few years." Harry nodded, but as he turned to leave, the seed suddenly flared with light. Quirrell flinched back dramatically, knocking over a stack of books. Sorry," the professor muttered, but for an instant, Harry saw something else in his eyes, a sharp, calculating look entirely at odds with his bumbling persona. "No problem, sir," Harry said lightly. "Clumsy of me to startle you." He left the classroom quickly, mind racing. Something was very wrong with Professor Quirrell, or rather, something wrong was with Professor Quirrell. The seed's reaction was unmistakable, it detected dark magic, powerful and malevolent. That night, Harry wrote a detailed letter to the Flamels about Quirrell, his suspicions, and the seed's reaction. He also mentioned Snape's apparent knowledge of his mother, hoping they might have more information. The response came 3 days later at breakfast, Hedwig swooping down with a thick envelope. Harry broke the wax seal, emblazoned with the Flamel symbol of a phoenix perched atop a crucible, and unfolded the parchment. "Dear Harry, your letter concerns us greatly. The seed's reaction to Professor Quirrell suggests a magical parasitism or possession, extremely dangerous dark magic. Do not confront him or give any indication of your suspicions. We've contacted Albus with our concerns. As for Severus Snape, yes, he knew your mother quite well. They grew up in the same neighborhood and were close friends until their 5th year at Hogwarts. A rift developed between them, the nature of which we're not at liberty to discuss. That story belongs to Severus. Despite their estrangement, he always respected Lily's exceptional talent in potions and charms. Regarding your classes, we understand the challenge of balancing your advanced knowledge with the need to blend in. Perhaps channel your energies into helping your friends. Teaching often reveals gaps in one's own understanding. On a related note, we've enclosed something that might help with your exploration of the castle. It's a map Nicholas created during his brief teaching stint at Hogwarts in the 1700s. It's not complete, as the castle changes over time, but the major passages should remain. Write again soon, and be vigilant without being obvious. With love, Nicholas and Perenelle P.S. Your mention of the 3rd floor corridor is intriguing. Albus has asked us to safeguard something important this year. The two may be connected. Harry examined the enclosed map with interest, a detailed schematic of Hogwarts showing secret passages, hidden rooms, and curious notations in Nicholas's spidery handwriting. More intriguing was the Flamels' hint about something hidden in the 3rd floor corridor. Something they were helping to protect. What's that? Ron asked, trying to see the map. Just some notes from home, Harry said, folding the parchment away. The Flamels checking in. Hermione, however, had caught a glimpse. That looked like a map of Hogwarts. It is, Harry admitted. Nicholas made it ages ago when he taught here briefly. Ron's eyes widened. Wicked. Does it show secret passages? A few, Harry grinned. Want to explore after charms? With the map's help, the three friends discovered numerous hidden corners of the castle over the following weeks. Harry was careful to keep his concerns about Quirrell to himself, though he kept the seed close whenever the defense professor was near. On their 3rd weekend at Hogwarts, Harry spotted a notice in the Gryffindor common room that made his heart leap. First-year flying lessons would begin on Thursday, with Gryffindor and Slytherin learning together. Brilliant! Harry exclaimed. I've missed flying. You've flown before? Ron asked. I thought first years weren't allowed brooms. The Flamels estate isn't exactly under ministry supervision, Harry explained with a grin. Perenelle taught me when I was 6. She played chaser for Beauxbatons in the 1800s, during one of their rejuvenation periods, he added, seeing Ron's confused look. Thursday arrived, and the first years marched down to the smooth lawn opposite the Forbidden Forest where 20 broomsticks lay in neat lines on the ground. Madame Hooch, the flying instructor with hawk-like yellow eyes, arrived shortly after. Well, what are you all waiting for? She barked. Everyone stand by a broomstick. Come on, hurry up. Harry glanced down at his broom, old and somewhat shabby, with twigs sticking out at odd angles. Nothing like the custom racing broom the Flamels had given him, but he felt a thrill nonetheless. Stick out your right hand over your broom, called Madame Hooch at the front, and say, up. Up, everyone shouted. Harry's broom jumped into his hand immediately, one of the very few that did. He grinned, feeling the familiar vibration of magical energy through the wood. Madame Hooch showed them how to mount their brooms correctly, walking up and down the rows correcting grips. Harry was pleased when she nodded approvingly at his form. Now, when I blow my whistle, you kick off from the ground, hard, said Madame Hooch. Keep your broom steady, rise a few feet, and then come straight back down by leaning forward slightly. On my whistle, 3, 2, but Neville, nervous and jumpy, pushed off before the whistle touched Madame Hooch's lips. He rose straight up like a cork shot out of a bottle. Come back, boy. Madame Hooch shouted, but Neville was rising straight up, his scared white face looking down at the ground falling away. Harry saw what would happen moments before it did, Neville slipping sideways off the broom, plummeting toward the ground. Without thinking, Harry whipped out his wand, pointed it at Neville, and shouted, Arresto momentum. Neville's fall slowed dramatically, allowing him to hit the ground with only a fraction of the impact. He still fell heavily on his wrist, wincing in pain, but was otherwise unharmed. "Mr. Potter." Madam Hooch said sharply, hurrying over to check on Neville. "That spell is well beyond first-year curriculum. Where did you learn it?" "Nicholas taught me basic safety spells before I was allowed on a broom," Harry explained, heart still racing from the adrenaline. "Is Neville okay?" "Broken wrist, but nothing Madame Pomfrey can't fix in a minute," Hooch said, helping Neville to his feet. "That was quick thinking, Potter. 5 points to Gryffindor." She turned to the rest of the class. "None of you is to move while I take this boy to the hospital wing. You leave those brooms where they are or you'll be out of Hogwarts before you can say Quidditch. Come on, dear." Neville, tear-streaked and clutching his wrist, hobbled off with Madam Hooch supporting him. No sooner were they out of earshot than Malfoy burst into laughter. "Did you see his face, the great lump?" The other Slytherins joined in. "Shut up, Malfoy," snapped Parvati Patil. "Ooh, sticking up for Longbottom," said Pansy Parkinson, a Slytherin girl. "Never thought you'd like fat little crybabies, Parvati." "Look," said Malfoy, darting forward and snatching something out of the grass. "It's that stupid thing Longbottom's Gran sent him." The Remembrall glittered in the sun as he held it up. "Give that here, Malfoy," said Harry quietly, stepping forward. Everyone stopped talking to watch. Malfoy smiled nastily. "I think I'll leave it somewhere for Longbottom to find, how about, up a tree?" "Give it here." Harry repeated, but Malfoy had leapt onto his broomstick and taken off. He hadn't been lying, he could fly well. Hovering level with the topmost branches of an oak, he called, "Come and get it, Potter." Harry grabbed his broom, calculating risks and rewards in an instant. "No!" shouted Hermione. "Madam Hooch told us not to move, you'll get us all into trouble." Harry ignored her. He mounted the broom and kicked hard against the ground, soaring upward. Air rushed through his hair, his robes whipped out behind him, and a fierce joy filled him as he realized how much he'd missed flying. He pulled his broomstick up a little to take it even higher and heard screams and gasps from girls back on the ground and an admiring whoop from Ron. Harry turned his broomstick sharply to face Malfoy in midair. Malfoy looked stunned. "Give it here," Harry called, "or I'll knock you off that broom." "Oh, yeah," said Malfoy, trying to sneer, but looking worried. Harry leaned forward and grasped the broom tightly, shooting toward Malfoy like a javelin. Malfoy only just got out of the way in time. Harry made a sharp about-face and held the broom steady. "No Crab and Goyle up here to save your neck, Malfoy," Harry taunted, all his trained diplomatic restraint forgotten in the exhilaration of flight. The same thought seemed to have struck Malfoy. "Catch it if you can, then," he shouted, and he threw the glass ball high into the air and streaked back toward the ground. Harry saw the Remembrall rise up in slow motion, then start to fall. He leaned forward, pointing his broom handle down, and the next moment he was gathering speed in a steep dive, racing the ball. Wind whistled in his ears, mingled with screams from the watching students. He stretched out his hand, a foot from the ground he caught it, just in time to pull his broom straight, and he toppled gently onto the grass with the Remembrall clutched safely in his fist. Harry Potter. His heart sank faster than he'd just dived. Professor McGonagall was running toward them, her face white with shock. Never, in all my time at Hogwarts, Professor McGonagall was almost speechless with shock. "How dare you, might have broken your neck, it wasn't his fault, Professor." "Be quiet, Miss Patil," "But Malfoy, that's enough, Mr. Weasley. Potter, follow me, now." Harry caught sight of Malfoy, Crabbe, and Goyle's triumphant faces as he left, walking numbly in Professor McGonagall's wake as she strode toward the castle. He was going to be expelled, he just knew it. He wanted to say something to defend himself, but there seemed to be something wrong with his voice. To his surprise, McGonagall led him not to her office, but to a classroom where she asked Professor Flitwick if she could borrow Wood for a moment. Wood turned out to be a burly fifth-year boy who looked confused at being summoned. "Potter, this is Oliver Wood." Wood, I've found you a seeker. Wood's expression changed from puzzlement to delight. Are you serious, Professor? Absolutely, said McGonagall crisply. The boy's a natural. I've never seen anything like it. Was that your first time on a broomstick, Potter? No, Professor, Harry admitted. I've been flying since I was 6. He caught that thing in his hand after a 50-foot dive, Professor McGonagall told Wood. Didn't even scratch himself. Charlie Weasley couldn't have done it. Wood looked as though all his dreams had come true at once. Ever seen a game of Quidditch, Potter? He asked excitedly. I've played Seeker in informal games for years, Harry said, finally understanding what was happening. Perenelle Flamel taught me. Wood looked even more ecstatic. He's just the right build for a Seeker, too, he said, walking around Harry and staring at him. Light, speedy, we'll need to get him a decent broom, Professor, a Nimbus 2000 or a Clean Sweep 7, I'd say. I shall speak to Professor Dumbledore and see if we can bend the first-year rule. Heaven knows, we need a better team than last year. Flattened in that last match by Slytherin, I couldn't look Severus Snape in the face for weeks. Professor McGonagall peered sternly over her glasses at Harry. I want to hear you're training hard, Potter, or I may change my mind about punishing you. Then she suddenly smiled. Your father would have been proud, she said. He was an excellent Quidditch player himself. You're joking. Ron exclaimed that evening when Harry told him and Hermione what had happened. Seeker. But first years never, you must be the youngest house player in a century, said Harry, finishing Ron's sentence. Wood told me. Ron was so amazed, so impressed, he just sat and gaped at Harry. Hermione looked torn between disapproval of rule-breaking and excitement for Harry. I start training next week, Harry said. Only don't tell anyone, Wood wants to keep it a secret. The Weasley twins, who were apparently beaters on the Gryffindor team, came over to congratulate Harry, speaking in low, conspiratorial voices about their upcoming victory. After dinner, Harry made his way to the Ollery to send a letter to the Flamels with the news of his Quidditch position and asking if they might help with the broom situation, given his Nimbus 1700 was at home. The following morning, Harry received not one but 2 packages at breakfast. The smaller one contained a letter from Perenelle. Congratulations, Sherry. I always said you flew like you were born on a broomstick. Nicholas has already contacted the school about your Nimbus 1700, special dispensation for a first-year player. In the meantime, enjoy this little gift, it served me well when I played. Inside the package was a beautiful pair of dragonhide Seeker's gloves, supple but strong, with PF monogrammed on the cuffs. The second, larger package came with a note in spidery handwriting Harry didn't recognize. Do not open the parcel at the table. It contains your new Nimbus 2000, but I don't want everybody knowing you've got a broomstick or they'll all want one. Oliver Wood will meet you tonight on the Quidditch field at 7 o'clock for your first training session. Professor M. McGonagall. Harry passed the note to Ron, who read it with envy. A Nimbus 2000. I've never even touched one. They left the hall quickly, wanting to unwrap the broomstick in private before their first class, but halfway across the entrance hall they found the way upstairs barred by Crabbe and Goyle. Malfoy seized the package from Harry and felt it. That's a broomstick, he said, throwing it back to Harry with a mixture of jealousy and spite on his face. You'll be in for it this time, Potter, first years aren't allowed them. Ron couldn't resist. It's not any old broomstick, he said, it's a Nimbus 2000. What did you say you've got at home, Malfoy? A Comet 260. Ron grinned at Harry. Comets look flashy, but they're not in the same league as the Nimbus. What would you know about it, Weasley? You couldn't afford half the handle, Malfoy snapped back. I suppose you and your brothers have to save up twig by twig. Before Ron could answer, Professor Flitwick appeared at Malfoy's elbow. Not arguing, I hope, boys, he squeaked. Potter's been sent a broomstick, Professor, said Malfoy quickly. Yes, that's right, said Professor Flitwick, beaming at Harry. Professor McGonagall told me all about the special circumstances, Potter. And what model is it? A Nimbus 2000, something went wrong with this response, please try again. Bring out the next chapter now. Chapter 3, The Philosopher's Legacy Christmas Revelations. Christmas morning, Harry receiving special gifts from the Flamels, an invisibility cloak with note mentioning it was his father's, enhanced with alchemical protections, ancient alchemy text disguised as a fiction book, special ingredients hidden in candies and treats. Ron's surprise at Harry's collection of meaningful gifts, contrasting with his lack of family stories. Nighttime exploration using the cloak to explore restricted areas. Finding the Mirror of Erist, Harry seeing complex vision of both his birth parents and the Flamels. Dumbledore catching Harry. Conversation revealing Dumbledore knows more about Harry's upbringing than expected. Discovery of information about the third-floor protections in the restricted section, connecting Fluffy to the stone's protection through careful observation, piecing together the threat. Harry detecting increasing magical disturbances in the castle. Communication with Flamels revealing their rival Aurelius Shade was an alchemist who sought immortality through darker means. Hermione researching strange magical occurrences in the castle. Ron providing insight into wizarding politics and rumors. The trio realizing the stone is in imminent danger, preparing for confrontation. Harry creating protective amulets for Ron and Hermione using his alchemical supplies, practicing specific spells and techniques they might need. Harry sharing limited information about his knowledge of alchemy. Deciding when and how to act based on observed patterns of suspicious activity. Failed attempt to convince professors of the danger. The Gauntlet decision to go after the stone themselves when they realize Dumbledore has left the castle. Navigating Fluffy with music, Harry recognizing the mythological connection immediately. Devil's Snare, Harry using alchemical fire that doesn't burn plants but forces retreat. Flying Keys, Harry's Quidditch skills and strategic thinking. Chess game, Ron's strategy with Harry's alchemical insights. Potion riddle, Hermione's logic complemented by Harry's potion knowledge. Harry continuing alone for the final confrontation. Final confrontation meeting not just Quirrell but discovering he's possessed by the essence of Aurelius Shade, using Voldemort's weakened spirit as a conduit. Shade revealing centuries-old vendetta against the Flamels for denying him immortality. Harry revealing his more advanced alchemical abilities when forced into a corner. Climactic battle combining conventional magic with alchemy. Harry's protection from his mother's sacrifice reacting unexpectedly with his alchemical abilities. Defeat of Shade/Quirrell, but not complete destruction. Essence escaping resolution. Hospital wing recovery, Dumbledore visiting, having more honest conversation about Harry's upbringing. Flamels arriving at Hogwarts, reunion with Harry. Decision that the stone needs better protection, Flamels choosing to become more active in magical society. End-of-year feast, House Cup celebration. Harry's reflection on his first year, newfound friendships, and the balance between his two worlds. Train journey home, promises to visit friends over summer while continuing alchemical studies. Return to the Flamels with new perspective and maturity. This detailed outline establishes the key plot points, character development, and themes for each chapter while maintaining the requested pace, style, and narrative approach. The story stays focused on action and character development rather than excessive description or exposition, and each chapter has a unique feel while advancing the overall plot. Now I'll prepare a version of this outline to present to the human for review before proceeding with writing the full chapters. What if Harry was raised by the Flamels? Immortal Alchemist Harry, story outline. Overall plot: Harry Potter, orphaned as a baby, is placed with Nicholas and Perenelle Flamel instead of the Dursleys. The Immortal Alchemist couple raises him in their secluded manner, teaching him ancient magic, alchemy, and centuries of accumulated wisdom. By age 11, Harry is a capable young alchemist with a unique perspective on magic, mortality, and power. The story follows his first year at Hogwarts, where he must balance his advanced abilities with normal school life, forge genuine friendships, and confront a threat connected to the Flamels' centuries-old past. Themes: knowledge versus wisdom. Harry's advanced magical knowledge contrasted with his need for life experience. Immortality's burden, seeing life through the eyes of guardians who've lived for centuries. Belonging and identity, balancing his Potter legacy with his Flamel upbringing. Power and responsibility, using his alchemical abilities ethically in a world that doesn't understand them. Friendship as alchemy, true connections that transform both parties. Main character arcs: Harry Potter, a confident, capable young alchemist who must learn to connect with peers his own age while hiding the full extent of his abilities. He struggles between his independence and need for friendship, gradually learning that strength comes from connection as much as knowledge. Nicholas and Perenelle Flamel, ancient alchemists who've raised Harry as their own, they must confront their own past mistakes as an old enemy resurfaces. Their arc involves letting Harry grow independent while protecting him from centuries-old dangers. Ron Weasley, initially intimidated by Harry's obvious capabilities, Ron overcomes his insecurities to form a genuine friendship based on loyalty and complementary strengths. Hermione Granger finds in Harry an intellectual equal who challenges her textbook approach to magic. She evolves from viewing Harry as competition to valuing his different perspective on magic. Antagonist, Aurelius Shade, an ancient rival of the Flamels, long thought dead, who has possessed Quirrell and uses Voldemort's weakened essence as a magical conduit. Seeks revenge against the Flamels and covets true immortality. Detailed chapter breakdown. The end. Thank you for watching this video. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel and like this video.